Hey, everyone. This is a podcast after a year and a half break. Oh my gosh. A lot can happen in a year and a half. And much of what was published in the later part of 2022 was also recordings from some of my mentorship sessions. In 2020, I actually started some intensive therapy with EMDR and parts work. And it not only changed my entire life, it changed how I do business. It changed how I do relationships. It changed everything. Many of you have seen the dramatic change on social media, not just in what you see, but even in the tonality of how I talk, the softness that has come over me without losing my boldness. And many of you, when you've recently seen me working out and seen some photos of me, have said, how and when and what did you do? But here's the thing. I'm going to record the next 3 podcasts and share some of my journey with you. There's no way I could share all of it with you on a podcast. I'm actually writing a book on why the brain wants to heal and why the distresses that we are living in are because there's signals coming from our brain that something is not right. A lot of times, the depression, the anxiety, the inability to sleep, the lack of motivation, the no focus, the inability to have close relationships, the inability to be able to make more money, many things, the inability to stop addictions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whether you're a Christian or not, we deal with these kinds of things. And a lot of times what's happening is our brain, our mind is giving us a signal that something's not right. Now, I asked many of you why on social media. I've got over 1 million and 1.2 million on my Facebook page, over 150,000 on my Instagram. And I asked you, why do you think if you really need to change your life, whether it's your health, whether it's lack of energy, you need to get some therapy for better relationships, et cetera. Why do you think you're not doing what it takes? Why do you look at me as this astronomical inspiration and motivation? And why aren't you doing the same? And the reasons that you gave me was time management, working on debilitating perimenopause. Well, I actually dealt with all of that while I was changing my life. Movement, diet. How do I spend my free time? I'm wasting it scrolling. Some of you said, I don't know. Well, at least you're honest. My mindset that I don't matter, so why work on myself? I can relate to that one. My mindset on actually researching what I need to do. My budget and support system. I had no support system changing my life other than my children. Everybody else thought I was crazy to take some of the moves that I made, thinking I was actually going to end up dead when I went off certain medications, thinking I was crazy, seeing a doctor in a different state. Some of you said, I have bad habits and I can't seem to get out of it. I have money problems. It just doesn't seem like it's fair. That's why I can't change my life. I'm deeply disappointed in who I am and I can't move. I need more encouragement in order to do it. Because of my job, because of my churches, where I live, I can't change. My mentality about fitness, finances, boundaries. Here's the thing. One of our coping mechanisms in the mind is reinforcing self-protection. And that's not necessarily bad, because God didn't wire us to thrive. That actually comes the abundance, the thriving, the moving forward, the grace he gives, the prosperity, all of that, that comes from doing what we need to do to have that kind of quality life. But the survival is actually happening in our mind without us even realizing it, unconsciously. So like when we're stuck and we're so used to being stuck and we're so used to believing we don't have any solutions, and we're so used to coming up with reasons why we can't move, where we live, who we're married to, the fact we have kids, the fact we have work, the fact we don't have enough money, the fact we had an illness, all this stuff. What we're doing, our mind is trying to tell us it's going to be too uncomfortable. It's not going to work. It's going to be too hard. It's going to be too costly. People aren't going to understand. People aren't going to like you. People are going to think you're extreme. All these things we come up with are actually ego defenses to help us survive. But most, if not all of our ego defenses and the rationalization and the excuses that we come up with happen not because anything's really happening that we need to protect ourselves with and survive from, but because those are memories in our mind, and our mind is constantly looking to see whether or not it might be happening again. Maybe that horrific traumatic event you had happened to you, like me, when you were a little kid and you were violated and your choices were taken away and you had to figure things out yourself. Nobody was there to protect you. You had to protect you. Maybe anytime, anything, whether you're 30 or you're like me, going to be 60 in a few months, something reminds you of that. And again, this isn't happening consciously, because consciously I can tell myself that's not happening right now. That's a crazy thought. Usually in the Christian church, what we do is we think it's demons. It must be demons. Sometimes maybe it is. But the majority of the time, what it is it's our own reinforcements to just stay where we are. Because we fear the uncomfortable. We know it's not going to be easy. Shoot, we didn't get here overnight. But we act like, and we say things, and we go after things that look like, well, maybe this will make it easier. Maybe this won't make it as complicated. Maybe this will make it so that it doesn't take all my energy. Maybe this is the cheaper route. We look for shortcuts. My friends, I didn't go from being given a year to live on 140 milligrams of Oxycontin, 90 milligrams of prednisone in a horrifically abusive marriage, 75% of my digestive tract hemorrhaging, fibromyalgia, thrombocytopenia, Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and many other things. I didn't go from that to what you're seeing today with a shortcut. I didn't go from that to the body you see I have today with a shortcut. I lifted weights in my 20s. I competed. I abused the hell out of my body. I got my body fat down to under 4%. Dangerous. Had no periods for several years. Had body dysmorphia. My adrenals were shot. What the body you see I have today, like that was 40 years ago. People say muscle has a memory. Yeah, but that's 40 years ago and about 39 years of inactivity and complete sickness. This is starting from ground zero. This was starting from, I can hardly walk around my block without my legs hurting. I can hardly walk up that hill in my neighborhood without laying down on a curb to need to take a breath because I'm so winded. I didn't go from that to leg pressing over 500 pounds to being able to do mobility work that people in their 30s struggle with. That didn't happen because of some shortcut. And I didn't have a whole lot of support at all. Sure, a lot of you encourage me and you cheer me on and whatever, but nobody was walking to the gym every day and telling me to get my head out of my butt and do what I need to do. I had to do that. Nobody was telling me, even though you're exhausted, it's up to you, Sandi, to figure out where to get help and who to ignore. I had to figure that out. And the time that it takes and the effort that it takes and the money that it takes, because it did, is real. That's why most people, 99% of the population, will stay where they are. They want to change their life, but they don't want to change anything about their life to get there. And I'll tell you what, because 99% of the population, 99% of your family, 99% of your friends, 99% of your neighborhood, 99% of the church you attend, 99% of the people you encounter at work every day will support you staying where you're at. They will. So why change? Everybody else is struggling. Why not just struggle? Because I wanted to see my grandchildren get married. Because I knew deep in my being that this is not what God called for my life. I knew that I had to take personal responsibility and personal accountability. And we live in a day and age where you've got cults over here and mental illness over here, and everybody's a victim over here. And people on social media don't know how to think. They're asking their neighbor to think for them. And then they get pissed off when somebody doesn't give them the answer that they wanted. And we've got umpteen million pharmaceutical drugs being written every day for ailments that actually could be completely dissolved if we would start taking personal accountability and responsibility. So when I've got over 1.35 million people and over 500 of you want me to share with you what I did and how I got here, I have to muster up enough courage and motivation to do it, because I know 99% of you will do nothing. But you see, I have a new mentorship group that I've been leading since 2021 of investors, of people who meet with me every single day for 1 hour or watch the recording every single day to change what's going on with their money, to take control of their life, to make more money so they can get better health care, to make more money so they can get a personal trainer, to make more money so they can relocate to a better, safe neighborhood for their kids, to make more money so that they can create the kind of future they want. You see, financial freedom isn't so much about what's in your bank. It's actually the ability to choose how you do your life and not have anything hinder it. And I have a group of several thousand people who are in that group and have been since 2021. And they are 1%ers. They are 1%ers. I've been mentoring people since 2008, and I've had some incredible people. If you're one of them, thank you so much for the honor to be able to mentor you. But this group I've been working with since 2021, I have never in my life ever seen people hit it so hard and not have excuses and destroy their excuses and confront their ego processes and get therapy if they need it and do what they need to do, sell their belongings to get the money that they need to move ahead, do whatever it is. And the number one thing that they have that I did not have is a community that is actually doing that together. They have a leader who's already done it before them and is still doing it. Don't follow a leader who's not still doing what they're leading you in. That's just dysfunctional. So I have hope. I have hope that if I was able to impact thousands of people with this, we put 1.8 million people through my business trainings before we retired my Inner Circle Mastermind. By the way, that's actually being turned into something connected to AI, where you're going to be able to ask Sandi in the future business questions with AI, but that's coming in a while. But I've been able to have thousands of people now that I've met and are in my group all together, and they're 1%ers. So I have hope that many of you are finally going to start taking notes, that many of you are going to start having more faith in yourself and what you deserve than in your fear. You're going to have more faith that you actually can overcome than supporting your doubt like you've been doing for years. You're going to have faith to cut off relationships that are making you sick. Leave churches that are coercively controlling you. You are going to find better friends. You're going to find a better church. You're going to have better boundaries, and you're going to do the work. This is for you. This will be in 3 parts. That way I'm going to give you some information and you're going to have some time to journal and you're going to have some time to process it. Then we're going to come back again and hit it hard. And then we're going to come back again and close it up. A lot of what I want to teach you about the mind, however, is in my book that I'm writing right now. So in 1992, I was lifting weights and was a single mommy with a 5-year-old, and I got married. In 1994, I started my very first online business with a high school education and no money. I sold a bunch of stuff that I had bought on credit cards in my house, and I started an online business. And my business plan literally was praying. It was like, God, show me what to do. But every time I lacked something like money or help, I did one of 2 things. Sold whatever I thought I needed that I actually realized I could live without this for a year. So I'll just do, maybe I'll just do the dishes on my own. I didn't sell our dishwasher, but I would have. Do my dishes by hand and sell the damn dishwasher. Oops, sorry. But I sold like my way of making myself feel confident and comfortable, even though I was wasting away and starting to not, I wasn't wasting away at that point, but I was very insecure and my confidence was wasting away and all of that. But I still had this belief that I could start a business. The only reason I started the business was to get kitchenware. Because I wanted to have higher end kitchenware for my house. And like at that time, my ex-husband made like $36,000 a year in Detroit. And the kitchen mixer I wanted was $250 and the grain mill was like 300. And I was like, oh God, it's going to take me 5 years to get this thing. And the credit cards were maxed out with things we didn't need. So I sold almost my entire wardrobe, bought some clothes at the Goodwill, and started my business. It actually was like the end of 1993. By the end of 1994, I had made my first million. I'll have to go look at the timeline. Because I know my first year, I think I actually might have started, in the beginning of 93. I mean, it was a wild progression. And then I was scared out of my wits, scared that people would judge me because I was making that money. My ex-husband started persecuting me. Here he was with a degree and working at GM. And here I was with a high school diploma. And I was like a weak and insecure single mommy that he thought he was rescuing. And I made $1 million online. Didn't really know how to manage money. Wasn't quite sure what I did. But that's when the hypervigilance started that actually was in my mind since I was a little kid. I had experienced horrific events prior to that. Many of you know my testimony. Horrific events. And my brain knew how to go into hypervigilance, and it did. And by the end of 1996, beginning in 97, I was on my first dose of opiates. By 2010, I had lesions on my spine. 75% of my digestive tract was hemorrhaging. They told me I had a year to live for the 3rd time. Mind you, I'm still running multi-million-dollar companies and homeschooling my kids. Talk about survival. And I had lesions on my spine. So much pain in my body. And I just started to get some help from some counselors. And it wouldn't be until 2015 that I actually would have the courage to file for a divorce. By that time, I had a doctor tell me, you are going to die if you don't go on Remicade. I also knew I was on such high doses of opiates, not addicted to it, but my body was tolerant because I had been on it so long, that when they did the colonoscopy in 2015, they had to redose me in the middle of it because it wasn't strong enough. My body was so tolerant to narcotics. It is the grace of God and personal discipline that I did not become an addict. You watch those movies about opiate clinics, I went to them. And I remember making a decision that I have got to do something because now I am going to be living on my own. I filed for a divorce. It was final in 2017, but from the end of 2015 till January of 2017, I actually weaned myself down on my own with no cannabis or CBD, because where I lived, I could have gotten in big trouble, actually thrown in jail. But I created my own protocol of titrating myself down by doing tons of research. I did a lot of research because that was what I did in my businesses. That's how I made millions of dollars in multiple companies. And I went from 140 milligrams of Oxycontin down to 60. And I went from 90 milligrams a day of prednisone down to 20. I still have stretch marks right underneath this part of my neck because my face had swelled up so much being on those medications. And it was in 2016, near the end, when I realized, mind you, I'm now getting Remicade and I'm trying to take care of myself. And it's pretty scary because I hadn't driven in several years. I wasn't driving on Oxycontin when I was on it. And now I'm living by myself. And I realized I can't become that woman who is the complete pain in the butt to my children, where I'm completely inept and can't do anything. Like I had spent my whole life and my whole career white knuckling my way through. And I knew white knuckling my way through is not going to be how I'm going to heal from this. If I'm going to heal from this, I'm going to have to do stuff I never did before. And I had talked about moving to Arizona, but I never had the courage to. It was terrifying for me to even cross state lines, let alone go 20 hours away and relocate. But I made a decision to do so because I started talking to different experts online in cannabis. And you can listen to the podcast on cannabis and Christians. And I talk about how I weaned off of all those opiates. And when I met Dr. Erica Schwartz in Manhattan, New York, mind you, I'm living in Arizona, went and saw her personally. She started treating me and still does to this day with a concierge service and virtual meetings through Zoom. She also started doing my labs every 3 months. And since that time, I have had my labs checked every 3 months. Many of you have heard she put me on peptide therapy. That was before it ever was on every street corner with every, street manufacturer making a knockoff that's very dangerous. She put me on injectable peptides to help my body restore the collagen, because the lining of your gut is collagen. And she put me on a protocol of bioidentical hormones because I literally had very little, if any, estrogen. I had a hysterectomy in 1995 after losing my fourth baby. And the wildest thing happened. I started sleeping. And I started being able to think like I did when I was in my 30s. I hadn't yet cleared my mind out of hypervigilance yet. That wouldn't come till 2020. But I actually started taking walks and I continued to wean down. And I have a picture on my phone. Let me see if I can find it. Of the day when I was at the Four Seasons Resort and I took my last dose of opiates. And I made a decision that no matter what it took, no matter what it cost me, no matter how hard it was, I was going to be free. And I have been off of opiates ever since. I've had pneumonia and I had a horrific infection in my jaw that lasted almost a year. And they put me on, I think the highest dose Erica ever put me on was 7.5 milligrams. And it was like almost too strong. my friends, the body knows how to heal itself if you give it what it needs. And some of what I needed was pharmaceutical medicine for my thyroid. Some of what I need was medical cannabis so I could sleep and detoxify and literally have pain relief without dangerous drugs. And I went from 140 milligrams and still in pain to being sick and 7.5 milligrams is too much. And as many of you know, I stepped back into the gym for the first time in almost 35 years, back in the end of 2017. I think I actually have a picture of that day too. And if you're listening to me on Apple, you can actually, or any of the other podcast channels, you can actually go back to this podcast. You'll find it on YouTube. The woman that you see today, this is who I was before I ever stepped back into the gym. This is what I wore when I started taking my walks. And my friends, you see, when you say to me that you don't have enough energy, you don't know what to do, you don't have enough time, you're not sure you can do this, and all of the other things you come up with. I remember I was the same. And I didn't have hardly any support. And yet I did it anyway. I can't find it. I'm really trying hard to find as I'm talking to you. And people say, yeah, but I've tried to do it anyway and I give up. Well, that's when you try again. That's when you make a commitment to yourself that no matter how many times I fall and no matter how many times I feel like I want to quit, I'm not going to quit. Why? Because this is your life. This is your life. Now, at that time, I was started working out and I was still on Remicade every 8 weeks, which is a very, very dangerous drug. Very dangerous. I know that the protocol Erica put me on protected me. And after going through 3 years, it'll be 3 years last December. Actually, after going through therapy for 3 years, last year in December, Erica and I made a decision that the Remicade is now making me sicker than it's actually helping me. At that point, I was 171 pounds, still working out as much as I could, still like healthy, and a lot of you thought I was just like fit, thick and everything, which I was, but starting to have all kinds of pain again. My joints were swelling. I would have nights where like my hands were like this and I couldn't move them. They were so freaking swollen. And I hadn't experienced that since like 2016, 17. So Erica and I decided to get me off Remicade and to put me on, it was about $8,000 a protocol of peptide injections in addition to what I was still already using to help rebuild my mitochondria. Felt like a pincushion for a month, 5 injections a day. I think maybe it was 6. I was like, oh my God. I started having welts on my hips, and these were all sub-Q injections in my belly, but I was determined. And at the end of that, I actually said to her, can we try LDN? Because I had done a lot of research on what low dose naltrexone does for lowering inflammation, helping MS, helping Crohn's, helping RA, all kinds of things. Now, I wasn't really a candidate for it before because my inflammation was so out of control. But my body started responding so well to coming off the Remicade and the protocol that she put me on the LDN. She also ran some genetic testing she had never done before. And we found out I had 2 of the MTHFR mother gene mutations, which are usually responsible for a lot of autoimmune conditions. Now, I also know the mother gene mutation was responsible for it, but the hypervigilance that I lived in my whole life because of the trauma that had not been reintegrated yet was also a major problem. And as we did this, I had already done 3 years of a lot of that integration. And that's when a lot of you started seeing a big change in me. You're like, oh my God, you're dropping weight. Oh my gosh, why do you seem so much softer? And in the end of March, I moved to Texas. And the wildest thing happened. Humidity used to make me super sick, and it didn't anymore. Humidity used to make my whole body hurt, and it didn't anymore. I've gone up to 110 degrees here in Texas, and it was 33 degrees this morning, and working out. Erica started treating the mother gene mutation with some methylated folate and methylated supplements. I continued on the LDN, only 6 milligrams. I continued taking the peptides. I was done with the mitochondria protocol, thank God. And I had to change my workouts because my body had to start adapting to this new inflammatory response. I couldn't keep lifting super heavy because it was taking me like 4 days, 5 days to recover from one workout. Like, I was working out 5-6 days a week, and all of a sudden I couldn't even work out 2 days a week. So I started doing mobility work, and I encouraged myself, and I started looking for options. Some of you would have given up. You would have just given up as soon as something gets hard on this journey. I got a tonal, I got a Peloton tread, I got some kettlebells, I got a TRX, had a gym built in my house. Some of you might say, I don't have the money. Yeah, but you got $20 a month, I guarantee you, because you're spending it on stupid stuff and you can get to a good gym. You got to get past this whole insecurity of, but I look good and I'm walking in amongst all these, fit people. So freaking what? You're not walking in there to get sexy and fit. You're walking in there because you already are sexy, and you know that giving yourself the gift of health is going to be the best thing you can do for your life. And here we are in November. I now weigh 140, 19% body fat, and oh my gosh, sleeping wonderfully, feeling great. And it's almost been a year since I've been on Remicade. And while that journey sounds so easy, because it's super easy to give the successive thing that I did in a podcast, in the next episode, I want to talk to you about when I wanted to quit, when I felt alone, when my brain tried to sabotage me, when I felt like I had no one, when I felt like it would only be short-lived and it was a figment of my imagination and all the disease was going to come back. When I had nightmares as my body was starting to adapt. By the way, I stopped using cannabis. I only use CBD and some adaptogenic mushrooms, and occasionally like maybe one milligram of THC or whatever mixed with that. But that's how strong and healthy I've been able to get. And I'm still getting stronger as well. I had to take a lot of naps in the last year because my body needed sleep to recover. I am convinced that the single greatest reason so many of you do not do what is required to change your life is because 99% of the people in your neighborhood, 99% of the people in your home, 99% of the people in your family, 99% of the people in your church aren't doing anything to change theirs. And that can be a lonely journey. So let me offer myself to be there with you and for you. The next 2 episodes are going to get much more in depth, going to talk to you about what it was like for me to go through therapy, different things I had to learn, how it actually affected my inflammatory response, many of the things. But you're going to have something I didn't have. You're going to have somebody who's done it walking with you. And this is free. This is a podcast. What you do with it is your choice. But I hope that I gave a punch in the face to every single one of your excuses. I hope I breathed faith into all of your unbelief. And I hope that you got a vision for the fact that you actually can change your life if you're willing to change the things in your life. I'll talk to you soon. Hey, come and see me on Instagram. That's where I actually answer DMs, and I do interact with people on my Facebook, but there's just way too many people for me to be answering DMs. If you want to write to me personally, you can DM me on Instagram. I would love to hear from you. Comment on my post. Let's get to know each other and know I'm in this with you. And I believe you can do it. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.